Picture this. You are sitting on the floor in your living room. Someone walks in, and they start yelling at you, voice raised, finger pointing, the air shifts. In the corner of the room, your dog was asleep. Was. Because now it is standing. Ears forward, body rigid. Eyes locked on the person who just raised their voice at you. Not blinking, not moving, just watching. Your first thought is the same thought every dog owner has in that moment. He is protecting me. And it feels true. It feels like loyalty, like some ancient noble instinct wired deep into the species. Most people stop there. Most people do not ask what is actually happening inside that dog's brain. But behavioral neuroscience has been asking for decades. And what they have found is not loyalty. It is something far more complex. A chain of emotional processing, threat assessment, social evaluation, and real-time decision-making that would take most humans several minutes to perform consciously. Your dog does it in seconds. And it starts before you even realize you are in trouble. But before we get to the reaction, we need to answer a more fundamental question first. Can dogs actually read human emotions? Not respond to them, not react to loud noises or sudden movements. Can they look at a human face and understand what it is expressing? In 2015, Korsenmuller and colleagues at the University of Veterinary Medicine Vienna published a study in Current Biology that changed how we think about canine cognition. They trained dogs to discriminate between two categories of human facial expressions, happy and angry. But here's what made the study extraordinary. They did not show the dogs' full faces. They showed only the upper half, or only the lower half. And the dogs got it right, consistently, reliably, across unfamiliar faces they had never seen before. This was not guessing, this was systematic visual recognition of emotional states. And the brain does not process all emotions equally. Siniskalki and colleagues discovered something remarkable in 2018. When dogs hear an angry human voice, they turn their head to the left. That is not random. In neuroscience, a left head turn indicates right hemisphere processing. And the right hemisphere is the side of the brain associated with threat detection, vigilance, and withdrawal responses. Your dog's brain is not just recognizing anger, it is routing that signal directly to the threat processing center. Your dog does not just look at faces, it reads them. And in milliseconds, the brain classifies what it sees into one of two categories, safe or dangerous. But reading emotions is only the surface layer. The deeper question, the one that keeps researchers up at night, is this. Can your dog actually feel your pain? Not observe it, not react to it, feel it. In 2013, Teresa Romero and colleagues published a study in animal cognition that gave us one of the clearest answers science has ever produced. They measured cortisol, the primary stress hormone, in both dogs and their owners simultaneously. When the owner experienced stress, the dog's cortisol levels rose in parallel, not in response to the stressful situation. The dogs were not exposed to the same stressor. They were responding to their owner's emotional state. The stress was contagious. Biochemically contagious. Sophie Sundman and colleagues pushed this even further in 2019. They did not measure cortisol in blood, which captures a moment. They measured it in hair. Hair cortisol reflects months of accumulated stress. The results, published in scientific reports, were striking. Dog and owner cortisol levels were tightly correlated over months. Dogs living with owners who scored high on anxiety questionnaires had chronically elevated baseline cortisol. Your dog is not just catching your stress in the moment, it is absorbing it over a lifetime. Scientists call this emotional contagion. It is the same mechanism that makes a newborn infant cry when it hears another infant crying. Not because it understands the other baby's distress, but because the nervous system mirrors the physiological state of another being automatically. Your dog may not understand your pain in the way you understand it, but its body mirrors your stress response with remarkable precision. The same hormones, the same arousal patterns, the same cascade of biological alarm. When someone hurts you, your dog is not a spectator. It is experiencing your stress alongside you, in the literal, measurable, biological sense. But here is where the story takes an unexpected turn. If emotional contagion were the whole picture, dogs would simply panic when you panic. They would flee. They would hide. So why do so many dogs do the opposite? Why do they move toward the danger? Natalia Albuquerque and colleagues answered part of this in a 2016 study published in Biology Letters. They demonstrated something called cross-modal emotional perception. Dogs do not just read faces. They do not just hear voices. They match them. When a dog hears an angry voice, it looks longer at the angry face. When it hears a happy voice, it looks at the happy face. Your dog is integrating multiple information channels simultaneously. Voice, face, body language, and constructing a unified assessment of the situation. Ludwig Huber and colleagues went deeper in 2017. Using functional brain imaging, they found that the temporal cortex in dogs activates specifically when processing human faces. That same brain region, in humans, is associated with theory of mind, the ability to infer what another being is thinking or feeling. Whether dogs possess theory of mind is still debated, but they are using the same neural hardware. What this means is that your dog is not just reacting to noise or movement, it is building a situational map. Who is speaking? What is their tone? What does their face show? Who is it directed at? And from that map, a conclusion forms. This person is a threat, not to me, to the person I am bonded to. That distinction matters enormously. This is not blind instinct. It is not a reflex. It is social cognition. Your dog knows who is causing harm, and it knows who is being harmed. And here's where the science becomes truly extraordinary. Dogs do not just evaluate situations, they evaluate people. Kazuo Fujita and Hitomi Jijiwa at Kyoto University designed an elegant experiment published in Animal Behavior in 2015. Dogs watched a social interaction. Their owner asked a stranger for help. In one condition, the stranger helped. In another, the stranger actively refused. The dogs observed everything. Then came the test. Both strangers offered the dog a treat. The dogs consistently refused food from the person who had refused to help their owner. Let that land. The dog witnessed a social interaction between two humans, judged who behaved badly, and punished them. Julianne Brower and colleagues confirmed this with a different experimental design in 2013. Dogs preferentially approached people who had previously treated their owner well, and they avoided people who had behaved negatively. The most striking detail, this preference appeared from the very first observation. No repeated exposure, no conditioning. One interaction was enough for the dog to form a social judgment about a human being. In developmental psychology, this capacity is called third-party social evaluation, the ability to judge someone not based on how they treat you, but on how they treat someone else. In human infants, this ability appears around 6 months of age. It is considered a milestone in moral cognition. Your dog has a comparable system, not identical, but functionally similar. Watching, judging, remembering. Your dog does not just love you. It evaluates everyone around you, and it remembers who treated you badly. But knowing who is dangerous and actually doing something about it are two very different things. From evaluation to action is a significant leap. So the question becomes, do dogs actually try to rescue you? Emily Sanford and colleagues at Johns Hopkins University designed one of the most compelling experiments in the field. Published in Learning and Behavior in 2018, they placed the dog's owner inside a large box with a door the dog could open. In one condition, the owner cried and called for help. In the other, the owner hummed calmly. 2/3 of the dogs figured out how to open the door. But here's the critical finding. The dogs opened the door significantly faster when their owner was crying. Not just opened it, rushed to open it. The distress signal accelerated the rescue response. And from the same study, a detail that may be the most important of all. The dogs who successfully rescued their owner showed elevated cortisol before they took action. They were stressed. They were physiologically distressed. But the stress did not paralyze them, it mobilized them. This mirrors what psychologists call the tend and befriend response in humans. When someone you are bonded to is in danger, your stress system does not always trigger fight or flight. Sometimes it triggers tend. Move toward the person you love, and help. This raises a crucial distinction. In empathy research, scientists differentiate between two responses. Personal distress, where you feel upset because the situation threatens you, and empathic concern, where you feel upset because someone else is suffering. Deborah Custance and Jennifer Mayer tested this in 2012. They had a stranger, not the owner, sit in a room and cry. The dogs approached the stranger. Even though their own owner was sitting nearby, perfectly calm, the dogs are not stressed for themselves. Research suggests they were responding to the distress of another being. That is not loyalty. That is something that looks, behaviorally, very much like empathy. When you are attacked, your dog does not run towards you because of pack instinct. It is not following an alpha. It is not executing a programmed subroutine. It runs to you because it senses your pain. Because your stress becomes its stress. And because that shared stress in a bonded relationship transforms into action. And there is one more information channel. One you cannot see. One you cannot hear. One you cannot feel. But your dog receives it instantly. Biagio D'Aniello and colleagues at the University of Naples published a remarkable study in animal cognition in 2018. They collected sweat samples from human volunteers experiencing fear. Then they exposed dogs to those samples. The dogs' heart rates increased. Their proximity-seeking behavior toward their owner intensified. Their willingness to interact with strangers dropped. The fear was not spoken, not shown, not performed. It was secreted through the skin, in molecules, and the dogs read every one of them. When you're afraid, your body changes its chemical output within seconds. Adrenaline, cortisol, volatile organic compounds, all released through your sweat glands. Your nose, with its 6 million olfactory receptors, detects none of it. Your dog's nose has 300 million. It reads your body's chemical state faster than your conscious mind can identify the emotion you are feeling. Before you know you're afraid, your dog already knows. Before you scream, before you flinch, before your brain has finished processing the threat, your dog already knows, because it smelled the fear in your sweat before you felt it in your chest. But here's a question that changes the entire frame. Why? Why would a predator species evolve to care about human emotions? Wolves do not do this. Wolves, the direct ancestors of every dog on Earth, show no cross-species emotional contagion with humans. So what changed? Miho Nagasawa and colleagues at Asabri University answered this in a study published in Science in 2015. One of the most prestigious journals on Earth, they discovered that when a dog and its owner gaze into each other's eyes, oxytocin levels rise in both of them, not slightly, by 130 to 300%. That is the same bonding mechanism that connects a human mother to her infant, the same hormone, the same feedback loop, the same neurochemical handshake that says, "You are mine, and I will protect you." Except this loop crosses the species boundary. 15,000 years of domestication created something that has no parallel anywhere else in the animal kingdom. A hormonal bond between two completely different species. Brian Hare and Michael Tomasello proposed the domestication hypothesis that explains how this happened. Dogs were not selected for intelligence. They are not smarter than wolves at problem solving. They were selected for something else entirely. The ability to read human social cues, eye contact, pointing, facial expressions, emotional states. Wolves that were slightly better at reading humans survived longer near human settlements. Their offspring inherited that sensitivity, generation after generation, for 15,000 years. Empathy was not an accident. It was the product of coevolution. And oxytocin does not just create warmth. It does something far more powerful. Research in human neuroscience has shown that oxytocin enhances vigilance, specifically toward threats targeting the bonded individual. It sharpens attention. It accelerates response time. It lowers the threshold for protective action. This is the same mechanism that makes a mother fiercely, sometimes irrationally, protective when her child is threatened. The same chemistry, the same urgency, running through your dog's brain every time it sees someone threaten you. 15,000 years of evolution turn the dog into the only creature on this planet with a cross-species oxytocin response to humans. You are not just an owner. You are not just a provider of food and shelter. You are its biological attachment figure, the being whose distress triggers its distress, whose fear activates its vigilance, whose pain mobilizes its body to act. But honesty demands something here. Not every dog reacts this way. Some dogs do not stand up when someone raises their voice at you. Some dogs retreat. Some dogs freeze. And understanding why is just as important as understanding the dogs who step forward. Joseph Topol and colleagues adapted the Ainsworth Strange Situation Test for dogs in 1998, the same experimental framework psychologists used to classify attachment in human infants. They found that dogs, like children, fall into distinct attachment categories: secure, anxious, avoidant. Securely attached dogs show a clear pattern. When a threat appears, they move toward their owner. They position themselves between the owner and the source of danger. They are more likely to engage in what we interpret as protective behavior. But attachment style is not fixed at birth. Breed contributes, temperament contributes, but rearing history may contribute the most. A dog that was abused in its early life may freeze when conflict erupts. Not because it does not care, not because it does not feel your stress. It feels it intensely. But its nervous system learned, through painful experience, that action leads to punishment. That moving toward danger leads to more danger. The freeze is not indifference. It is a survival strategy written into the neural circuitry by trauma. So if your dog does not rush to your side when someone raises their voice, do not conclude that it does not love you. It may be terrified. And that terror, that cortisol surge, that mirrored stress response happening inside its body, is itself evidence of attachment. The bond is there. The response is shaped by what life has taught it is safe to do. Now, one thing worth paying attention to. When your dog perceives a threat to you, its body tells the truth. Watch for these signals. Raised hackles along the spine. positioning its body between you and the threat. A low, sustained growl directed at the source of danger. Or the opposite, pressing its body against your leg. Trembling, rapid compulsive lip licking, whale eyes showing the whites. Both patterns are attachment responses. One says, "I will face this." The other says, "I need you to face this with me." Both say the same thing underneath, "You are my person." The distinction matters. Protective aggression is directed outward, toward the threat. Fear response is directed inward, toward you, seeking safety. But both stem from the same neurological root. Your dog sees you as its secure base, the person it returns to when the world becomes uncertain. Whether it faces the danger or seeks shelter against your body, the underlying message is identical. You are the center of its safety. And one thing that needs to be said clearly: never test your dog by staging a fake attack. Never participate in those viral video challenges where someone pretends to hit the owner to see what the dog does. The stress your dog experiences in that moment is not performance. It is real. The cortisol spike is real. The emotional contagion is real. The amygdala activation is real. And repeated exposure does not make it funny. It creates chronic anxiety. It damages the trust your dog has in the predictability of its environment. This is not a game, not for their nervous system. If your dog consistently overreacts, if it lunges at any unfamiliar person regardless of context, that may reflect underlying anxiety or a generalized threat response that needs professional evaluation. If your dog consistently shows zero response, total freeze, complete shutdown, that too deserves attention. Both extremes can reflect attachment disruption. A veterinary behaviorist can help sort out what is happening and guide a path forward. Your job is to notice the pattern, not to diagnose it. So, back to that room. Someone is yelling at you. Your dog rises from the corner. Now you know what is happening inside its brain. It is reading that person's face, processing the anger through its right hemisphere. It is smelling your sweat, detecting the fear chemosignals you do not even know you are releasing. It is synchronizing its cortisol with yours, feeling your stress as if it were its own. It is evaluating the threat, drawing on the same social cognition that allows it to judge who is safe and who is dangerous. And it is making a decision, all of this, in seconds. Emotional contagion, social evaluation, oxytocin-driven vigilance, cross-species empathy, 15,000 years of evolution compressed into a single moment. Your dog chooses to stand between you and danger, not from blind instinct, not from training, not from loyalty in the way greeting cards define it, but because you are its biological attachment figure. The only one it has, and every system in its brain, every hormone, every neural circuit shaped by 15 millennia of coevolution is telling it one thing: protect this person. If that changes how you see the dog lying next to you right now, stay with us.